You must not touch.
What the fuck?
Okay.
Welcome, Brain in a Jar, Solon's Monster, and Elephants in the Room, to the 224th episode of an Unearthly Podcast, streaming live on the 13th of September 2017, and featuring The Brain of Morbius, written by Robin Bland, and starring Tom Baker as the Doctor, Elizabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane Smith, and featuring Michael Spice as the voice of Morbius. I am Bill Sylvia, the Man in Black, and with me are Mad Matt Winchell,
OBS, figure your own shit out, please.
Randy Ronson McCulloch,
It's just one of those days.
Aaron Romeo Moonberg,
Hello.
and soon to feature Tim the Enchanter Sheridan, who is working late but expects to be with us.
Mm-hmm. Sometime after the news, or maybe at the tail end of it at this rate.
Thomas apparently had to go catch some sleep, but he did leave us his review.
As for what happened with our tech issues, for some reason OBS, for whatever reason, game capture has always worked for VLC, and then like literally the moment the stream starts, it stopped working. It was working like literally 10 minutes beforehand. It suddenly stopped, and then after doing it for like the third time through, window capture fine worked for the video tonight. I don't know why. It's never done it before. There's been no updates either, so don't look at me.
I don't know. Every time you guys have to start streaming a new game or something for the live streams, it usually turns out to be an OBS nightmare. It's one of the reasons.
That's streaming a new game, though.
I've never gotten into streaming.
That's streaming a new game, though, and there's always hiccups trying to get the game started for the first time. But the stream is the same every week, and this has never happened like this before. I don't know what the hell happened.
Maybe it was an update to DLC.
I don't think so. I don't think that's updated in a while either. Not that I can remember. It's been a couple of months at least. So if it would have happened, it would have happened sooner.
Yeah, I don't know. I stopped using VLC years ago.
I believe someone complimented me at GeekCon that I use it, so... Anyway.
No, it's just for me, it's just been a clip on like one of those days where I had a sleep study last night. And according to them, I have sleep apnea, by the way. And they tried to put, the frickin' Immortan Joe mask on me so that they could test to see if the CPAP stuff worked. And they discovered that I can't sleep if I've got a frickin' huge mask on my face. I don't know if you've ever seen the CPAP stuff in commercials or anything, but you basically have what looks to be a airline, in the event of the sudden loss of cabin pressure mask on your face, with a tube sticking out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking bigger than garden hose size, hooked up to a pump that's blowing air into your mouth and nose. I find this to be the most uncomfortable thing in the world. So they decided to do this about 1:30 in the morning, and I didn't sleep the rest of the night. They finally let me go at 5 in the morning, because I'd been doing nothing but sitting there reading for the last 3 hours. So, of course, I get home at just a touch after 6, after, of course, getting dressed and yada, 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 and I'm dead tired. So I go in the bedroom and I try to sleep, and I can't sleep. Because I'm worked up because now I have sleep apnea, and that might kill me in my sleep.
Second, I thought you were going to say like Bucky climbed on your head or something.
No. I closed the door. Bucky was out here. I'm like, okay, screw you, cat. I'm gonna go in here and get some sleep. So 12:30 rolls around, and I have to get up and go to get some blood work done and get my blood pressure checked and all this. Get in the car, start driving. Get over there, and I suddenly couldn't remember if my appointment was at 1 or 1:30. And this was bothering me the entire way there. And of course, I had to hit every single red light on the way there. You know how that works.
Mm-hmm.
And I get into the driveway, and the straightaway is full of a paper truck, like office paper unloading kind of thing. And the other side has somebody that's dropping somebody off in the middle of the parking lot, blocking all possible traffic. So I had to wait there for 5 minutes as they started walking away, and had to walk back and rummage through their car for something. I was not in a good mood when I got into my appointment, but fortunately that didn't matter. Fortunately, it didn't affect my blood pressure either.
Still, it's one of the things that make you roll your eyes so hard they almost get stuck in the back of your skull.
So I finally get out of there about 3 or 2:30ish, maybe. I don't know. And at this point, I hadn't eaten since 7:50 the night before. So I'm sitting there going, man, I'm hungry. And it's like, what do you want? And my stomach's like, I want a taco. I'm like, seriously? You had tacos last night? I want another taco. I'm like, what the fuck? When did I get a Mexican stomach? I don't remember having a stomach transplant, but now all it wants to eat is tacos. Of course, this is because it knows I can actually get tacos, if I can drive through Taco Bell and still meet my diet and have tacos, as long as they're hard shell.
Interestingly, today, for some reason, even though it's Wednesday and not Tuesday, was Taco Day in the school cafeteria.
Huh. Just trying to change things up, I guess.
Yeah. And they've publicized Taco Tuesdays before, so you'd think they would have done tacos on Tuesday. But
well, Taco Tuesday is a standard thing, everywhere. I mean, that's
right.
when Metcalf's has their taco bar.
But
Vexy just shared tacos in the chat.
But I mean, if they had never done Taco Tuesday, I could be like, okay, they don't care about that meme. They're just gonna do tacos whenever. But they've definitely advertised, yo, Taco Tuesday. So I don't know why they did Taco Wednesday today.
I don't know. Maybe because they realized
maybe the chef just wanted to make tacos.
Yeah.
We need to get rid of this
maybe
beef.
maybe they had enough tacos left over, taco meat left over. They're just like, yeah, we need to do another round of tacos.
It was shredded chicken taco.
And our taco bar really sucks now. They took out our nacho chips or nacho cheese. They don't even have refried Spanish rice in there anymore. Yeah, they took out 2 whole wells to make space for our new hot sandwiches that
no one's buying.
Yeah.
All right. I suppose I should get off about bitching about my day. And actually, we should go and actually embrace the news. So,
we got some
on
happy
tonight's
news.
show, there's the news, and there's not a lot of news tonight. There's a few things. And, of course, birthdays, which there are also not a lot of. Following that will be the 5-minute challenge, and then the episode review, our final thoughts, and our ratings. So, starting with birthdays. We have 3 birthdays, and they're all on the same day. Go figure.
Ta-da!
So, September 9th was the big day for birthdays, because the first one we had is Julia Swalha, who played Emma in Curse of Fatal Death. She turned 49. If you don't remember her, she's big on Absolutely Fabulous.
And she's the one, I wish either her birthday was a week earlier or Billy Piper's comment via interview or whatever was made a week later. Because I was trying to reference her last week but couldn't remember her name other than the companion.
Yeah, I didn't know it until I looked it up this time. Also, from Curse of Fatal Death, we have Hugh Grant, who played the handsome 12th Doctor. He turned 52. Hugh is scheduled to be in the sequel to 2014's Paddington, based on the children's character Paddington Bear, and that's due out sometime next year.
And wasn't the real 12th Doctor supposed in that too, or no?
In the sequel or in the original?
In the original, I think. Something to do with Paddington, I thought. Unless it was just like a collectible bear that was made.
I don't know. I hadn't heard anything.
Don't recall.
Yeah,
I might
actually,
just be thinking of a collectible bear that was made.
Yeah, because I've never seen Paddington. Oh no, he was in there as Mr. Curry in the first one.
So the real 12th Doctor was in the first one, and then the
Curse of Fatal Death one will be in another one.
Be in the second.
Also, the Fatal Death 11th Doctor was also in the first one. Because I just looked up the cast list and there's Jim Broadbent. So
will the stage plays 12th Doctor be in the third one? If there is one.
I don't know.
Or stage plays 11th, maybe.
All right, and our final birthday on the 9th of September is Janet Fielding, who played Tegan Jovanka, or actually is still playing Tegan Jovanka, turned 64.
Still playing, yes.
Janet has retired from acting, returning only to play Tegan in the Big Finish audio plays and the main line with Peter Davidson. So, other than that, we don't see much from her.
I think she's still a halfway decent actress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But by the way, Aaron, you might want to tweak up your detection a little bit. Yeah, I think you messed with it when you were having issues earlier. You're kind of skipping out. You need to make it a little more sensitive.
That is a mic issue.
Try it again.
A little more.
How's that?
There you go.
That sounds better.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, it's just the fact that her experience with Doctor Who under John Nathan Turner and the Fifth Doctor era really turned her off of acting.
And
that's a very common story from that period of Doctor Who. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Wow.
So she quit acting, worked as an agent for a while, and then got dragged kicking and screaming into Big Finish, where she just suddenly decided, without all the pressure from John Nathan Turner and everything, she suddenly loved it.
Janet was Paul McGann's agent, right?
Yes,
she was.
She tried to tell him away from going to do the TV movie, and he just went, "Screw you! I'm doing it anyway. I'm the Doctor."
Mm-hmm. And mind you, her film career, she started just before Doctor Who in Hammer House of Horror. Where she was in one episode, got cast as Tegan Jovanka. And while doing that, was in 2 other television single episode appearances in 82 and 84, and that was the end of her career. So literally when she left Doctor Who, she said, "Fuck this shit."
Admittedly, if your big introduction into long-term acting is the worst experience you've ever had in your life, then yeah, it's going to turn you off with something pretty quick, to be honest.
Yep, and like I said, she worked as an agent. She also worked for, let's see, what was it? Women in Film and Television UK, where she was in an administrative position there. And that was, after that, she began working as a theatrical agent. And she was representing Paul McGann when he played the 8th Doctor, and she told him, "Don't do it. Trust me, it's a horrible experience." And then she returned to Big Finish in 2006, 10 years later.
Unwillingly did an episode and then suddenly went, "You know what? I really like this. Can I come back?"
Mm-hmm. Well, she did one shot in 2006 and then spent 4 years going, And then she came back in 2010 and has just been making stuff ever since. So it just takes a bit for the bitterness to get out of your system, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so happy birthday, Julia, Hugh, and Janet. Moving on. Okay. I believe the next part is we have a little bit of a future episode news, and Aaron, you're on it.
Yep. So Stephen Moffat has hinted at a rather dark turn for the Doctor Who 2017 Christmas special. He's going to be examining, as what was hinted about Sherlock Holmes. He asked the question, why would Superman be good? And answered, because kindness stops you being lonely, would be the answer. And that's what that's about for Sherlock Holmes. However, he has also stated, kindness is what makes a unit of us. So if you are sane and rational, kindness is by far the best path there isn't anything rational about being vile and awful and evil. It's not actually a good strategy. Prepare for that to be contradicted on Doctor Who on Christmas Day.
Now, that's a big question, because we know I've had issue with Gaddis writing going, I'm evil because I'm evil. And no backstory on why someone is evil. I'm really hoping they're not doing that again.
Is Peter Capaldi's doctor suddenly going to turn evil?
I don't know.
And then the first doctor has to kill him and force him to regenerate?
Moffat likes to write, the villain is evil because the doctor needs to stop.
Yeah.
So,
as much as he's praising up this, I just kind of doubt it's going to be as deep as he thinks it is.
Yeah, because
it seems to be a Moffat issue frequently.
Every time he comes up with the same idea, he thinks it's a new idea. And it's not.
And then he tries to phrase it like it's going to be something new, and then it's just like, no, seeing it.
So we'll believe it when I see it.
It's like when my cat says they have a new idea to jump to a place really high up that I have trouble getting them down from.
This is totally a great idea.
No. What's even fun is when the cat tries to jump someplace that it thinks it can make it to and can't. Yeah! Tried to make the window from the couch. Ow!
Oh, I'm not sure which is hurt. My toes or my ego. I'm gonna go over here and lick my bum.
I'm gonna go behind the couch now and just sit there.
I look like a total idiot.
Yeah. Okay. So, moving on to the next article, Bill?
Yep. So, no, sorry. I had multiple threads going on in my head, and I'm trying to clamp down on one that...
God damn it, Bill. Focus.
Yeah. Well, it's just different ways of introducing. Anyway, so, last, or is it 2 years ago now?
No, it was last fall.
It was last year? Okay.
Yeah.
We had the first season of Class, and it wasn't very good for a few reasons, mainly, I would say largely to do with the lack of experience involved in overseeing it. And of course, because it's only commissioned for one season at a time, it wasn't officially canceled. It was just, they had not yet announced a series 2. So this is now a new quote brought to us by DoctorWhoNews.net from BBC Three controllers Damien Kavanagh, speaking at the Broadcasting Press Guild. When asked if they're bringing it back, no, there was nothing wrong with it. I thought Patrick did a great job. He explored an amazing world. In honesty, it just didn't really land for us on BBC Three. Things sometimes don't, and I've got to make decisions about what we're going to do from a drama point of view. So basically, it sounds like they're saying, we're not going to sit there and criticize content. We're just going to focus on the fact that nobody watched it.
Yeah.
Nobody watched it because the content sucked.
Actually, no, it's not valid, Bill. The reason Class failed, and I will say this, is because Patrick Ness had no experience as a showrunner. He had no real experience as a television screenwriter.
And that's why the content became very iffy.
That it's basically taking somebody who has basically acted in one freaking shampoo commercial and go, here, you're directing this movie now. You're directing the next Star Wars movie. No.
But I do shampoo commercials. This movie now.
Yeah, you don't do that.
Well, what I meant was
way up there.
What I meant was canceling it for the amount of people watching it is valid, because as we covered while it was airing, pretty much nobody watched.
Yeah, nobody watched though, but because it was not helped at all by the fact that the BBC itself probably oversaw that it was really bad and put it into a shovel position.
They did. I mean, the fact that they didn't simulcast it between BBC Three and BBC One meant that anybody who was going to watch it watched it on BBC Three. So the fact that they reshowed it on One really didn't pick up anything.
Ditto with the fact that they waited 6 months to air it on BBC America.
Which was also a really stupid idea, but based on the quality of it, I could see why they might have done it. It's like, why would we show this shit when we can show this better shit right now?
We can show the better shit first, and if they happen to stick around, then they'll just get a few extra views at best.
Mm-hmm.
If they just happen to leave
And-
their TV on and passed out at the end of Doctor Who.
If you look what BBC One did with it too, it was just like, we'll show episode 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7, 8. Hey, look, it's off our schedule now. Ha 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 ha.
We're off to produce something else.
Yeah. They literally, BBC One just basically just toasted it because they knew it was crap. BBC Three tried, but like I said, they really failed. They hired an inexperienced, somebody that had no business being a showrunner to be showrunner.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe if he had worked for another 3 to 5 years as a script writer, got used to the show running script writing process, maybe then he would have been a good showrunner. But having zero experience does not make you the person to run one of your flagship franchises.
Right. He should have been a writer with it being executive produced or produced by Stephen Moffat.
Except Moffat didn't want to put it on his plate.
Right.
Because
Moffat didn't
he's
want to
already
put it on his
doing-
plate, and to be honest, Moffat would suggest really bad ideas to change as well. So
Yeah, in fact, that
Yeah.
Moffat,
Who do you
Moffat-
think put that cliffhanger at the end in?
Yeah,
again,
I'm
bad
pretty sure
ideas.
that's Moffat. Yeah.
yeah, and the fact that Moffat sucks as a showrunner anyway.
Mm-hmm.
He does. Just face it, he does. He's a good writer when he has time to write his stuff.
But as
But
the head of a show,
as a-
he can be very iffy, especially if he's got too much going on.
Especially if he has to write a good chunk of it too.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, Class is no longer in existence, and we totally called it.
Wait, you heard it here first.
All right, so moving on. And this news came out fresh today. Is the fact that Christopher Eccleston, the Ninth Doctor, is now going to be playing Macbeth in the 2018 summer season for the Royal Shakespeare Company.
Oh, you're not supposed to say that out loud.
Right?
I'm sorry, the Scottish play. I'm not in it, so I can say it. You're only not supposed to say it if you're going to be in it.
How did that
Okay.
even start with?
It's one of
I
those.
keep forgetting that's a thing.
It's one of those acting superstitions that goes back into.
It's like not saying good luck.
It, yeah,
Or
it's like
break a
the whole
leg or
step on
whatever.
Yeah, it's exactly that. The whole reason you're not supposed to say Macbeth is there was one production of Macbeth. I don't know when, because again, this is centuries ago.
I'm looking it up.
That just had a horrible time and a lot of bad luck, and people were thinking that the play was cursed. So of course they can't not do it. It's frickin' Shakespeare. So they started calling it That Scottish Play.
Okay. Oh. Hello?
It's actually in
Okay, I knew he
Oh.
did Hamlet. I wasn't quite sure if he
Oh
had
no,
done
you're
that
right.
one
It
too
was
or not.
Hamlet. It
Okay.
was Hamlet.
Hello? I suddenly left and came back.
Oh,
You haven't missed much. We've just been talking about the background of That Scottish
I
Play.
just
and-
hope... Okay, the stream seems to be going non-stop, so hopefully
I was
that didn't
gonna
affect
say.
the... Oh, no, Vexy says it went black. We'll have to see if it split again.
Oh,
What the hell is going on today?
how long did it go black for?
You guys were gone for like maybe 3 seconds.
Okay.
Is it still black?
No, it's playing. It went to spinny and then came right back again for me.
Okay, so it was just suddenly that it dropped off and picked up.
Yeah, hopefully
That
it didn't
sounds-
drop off
that-
long enough
that
for us
sounds
to
like-
to cut the whole stream. But anyways, keep going
All right, so
before something else
yes.
happens. Knock
Yes,
on wood.
they actually mention it right here. David Tennant played Hamlet in the 2008 season at Stratford. Eccleston had previously played Hamlet even before he was the Doctor in 2004 at the West Yorkshire Playhouse. So this is not doing Shakespeare is not new to Eccleston, but still, being the title role in That Scottish Play is a big deal, especially when you're working for the RSC.
I have to wonder if there's any doctor actor who hasn't done Shakespeare.
Probably not, since most of the classic doctors pretty much came through RSC on their way up.
I don't know. Does Sylvester McCoy do any of it?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Anyway, the production of that Scottish play will be broadcast live to cinemas on April 11th, 2018. So, if you're interested, they'll probably pick that up here through, what is it? What's the specialty cinemas, the stuff that shows Doctor Who and shit?
Fathom Events?
Fathom Events. It'll probably be a Fathom event here. So keep your eyes open for it in April 2018 if you're interested.
Okay, moving right along.
Moving along.
Okay, so we are on.
Russell T Davies.
Yes, Russell T Davies. There we go. Ah,
Russell T Davies and his big mouth.
hang on. I was on the previous tab that I just discussed. But yes, Russell T Davies.
Hello? Hello? I think Discord just locked up. Seems like everything else is fine. What the hell?
We've been having technical issues
Oh,
all
hey,
night,
we're back
so-
again.
Here-
Okay, it was only Discord this time. Anyway,
Okay.
continue. Russell T Davies.
So yes, Harriet Jones has been revealed to actually still be alive. If you recall, at the end of the 4th series, a Dalek, where she was on a kind of a dark web, kind of subweb type dealie to contact all of the
God fucking damn it! What the hell's going on today?
Earth that the Daleks and Davros had sinister plans for. And a Dalek bursts into her secret lair or her hidden apartment or whatever, and zaps. We see a zap, and then her camera goes static, so that the other companions pretty much assume that she's been shot and killed. And it's kind of a very somber moment, kind of a sad one, because Harriet had appeared throughout much of New Who. Like, she started out as a reporter in World War III, I think, the first
No,
season?
she started out as a member of parliament, MP
Oh,
for
yeah, it was a
Bidale
member
North.
of parliament. She always came off as kind of a reporter to me.
Yeah, I agree. If you don't know what an MP is, her manner seemed the way a reporter would act.
Mm-hmm. I almost wonder if her character was rewritten to be an MP,
Possibly.
just so she'd have a better reason to be in the parliament building at that point. But anyway, yes, and she had occurred first there, and then she eventually became Prime Minister Harriet, I believe. PM Harriet.
Yes, she
Yeah.
was
Mhm.
elected prime minister as of the Christmas invasion.
Harriet Jones.
Actually,
and then-
I think you see it earlier in the season, but you first actually get to see her as prime minister in the Christmas invasion.
And did she didn't appear in Ghosts or in Doomsday or anything, did she?
No,
No.
because she had already lost her job as prime minister. It was one of David Tennant's first things.
Mm-hmm,
Was
to
after
move
she
her.
had blown up that ship, he basically used 6 words to take down her government.
Mm-hmm. So,
I would also like to point out it was a subwave network, not a dark web.
oh, Subwave, whatever. It basically
Well, no,
works
it's
like a
I just
dark
want to
web.
mention that just because the fact that dark web is what Barry hangs out on, and
This has nothing to do with where Barry goes.
right.
It's kind of the same thing. It was made to be somewhat similar, only more, science fiction-y feeling. So, let me see here.
Anyways,
But
she's
yeah,
supposedly
it was,
still alive.
Yes, and we know this to be true because it's in a book of poetry that's coming up. That I believe was it Russell T Davies actually wrote or
And
he
illustrated
it.
drew it.
I think he
drew it.
wrote it and illustrated it, or at least did it. I know he illustrated it. I think
He
he had some
illustrated
Somebody
information.
it.
somebody else wrote it, but he might
Yeah,
have
it's
had the
written by
creative
James
input.
Goss.
There we go.
Okay.
James Goss, and then illustrated at least a little bit by Davies. So, and it's in one of the probably in one of the poems where her where it's stated that she's still alive somehow. So, So there is a happy ending. I was never really that fond of Russell T Davies. Just kind of killing so many characters. It just seemed.
Yeah, well, I'm not fond of Stephen Moffat killing none.
Yeah.
There's got to be a
There
happy
needs
medium.
to be a happy balance.
Yeah.
All right, so that is that, and coming up, we have. Sorry, I actually read a little bit or paged through some of these. So.
Yeah.
Hmm?
I think it's more you.
Yeah, no.
A second thing from Russell T.
Huh?
There's a second thing from Russell T.
Yes, I know. I'm on that right now.
Okay, I thought it was more you.
I don't understand.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I
either.
thought you were covering this one too. Oh, for crying out loud!
She is.
Walking away, whatever.
Go.
I don't understand what the hell that was all about, but here we've got Cultbox, Doctor Who, how Russell T Davies hinted at Jodie Whittaker casting. So, let's see here. Oh yes, this is also has to do with his poetry, his book of poetry. Russell T Davies did an illustration. Basically, he wanted to do a kind of a trunk filled with different items that the Doctor would wear, and he kind of put in there like a female mannequin or like a pair of like women's shoes to kind of hint at it. So, once again, he kind of used this book idea to kind of hint at some interesting changes that were coming up. So, and this is the same book of poetry. It's going to be. I'm trying to find the title of the book of poetry.
We mentioned it a while back.
Yeah,
I thought it was in one of those articles.
Yeah, I don't.
Let's see, because I swear I read these earlier when I put them together. And I swear it was mentioned. Oh, Now We Are 600.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so it was also. It's also hinted, it looks like, in some of the not the dialogue, in some of the prose there. And we've been let me just say I've been friends with all these people. He's mentioning, he's kind of hinting at Stephen Moffat and Chris Chibnall. And we've been friends for years, so I knew what was in the air. I knew kind of. So.
Yeah, and again, this is kind of indicating.
Oh,
that
so he said of Stephen Moffat. Sorry, I thought that was actual like snippets of poetry that they had taken out. Never mind.
No, I mean, this is we've known for a while here. We mentioned it a couple weeks ago that Russell T Davies kind of let loose that he kind of knew that Chibnall was looking for a female doctor, and I mentioned that kind of annoys me. Not because he was, but because he told us he wasn't specifically. I mean, so, the first thing we get from the new guy is basically a flat out lie. Not a good start from our new showrunner. All right. So the next article, Bill. I believe we're going all the way down to books.
Here we go. So, Candy Jar Books has announced its latest short story. This is one of the PDF-only releases. This is The Cruel Oil by Harry Draper, and can be downloaded for free from the Candy Jar the Candy Jar Books website. Nope. Okay, it doesn't look like there's an actual blurb, but there are some quotes about it. The editor, Andy Frankham Allen, says The Cruel Oil is a result of our recent short story open submission window. It was a simple. It was
one of those.
Yep. It was a simple but intriguing pitch. When disaster occurs at North Sea platform and dead bodies preserved in tar from the spillage begin to disappear from their morgues, Lethbridge Stewart and Anne Travers discovered just how cruel the oil of Earth can be. Upon reading the full outline, I just knew it contained a classic era feel and would be better suited to Anne Travers and Bill Bishop, which led me to another idea. Say what the other idea is, unless this is the other idea, but that's random. This is set shortly before the novel The Dreamer's Lament, which was last month's.
I guess.
Bill?
Oh, Bill, not just me.
Did I go out for a second?
You definitely just stopped for no reason.
Yeah, you stopped mid-sentence and suddenly it was just dead air.
Well, what was the last thing I said before I stopped? Or before our Discord cut out, I guess.
Not a clue. I just remember you were about to say something and then all of a sudden just...
It was like 10 seconds before I said anything.
Yeah.
I think you were getting into some... It was post the big quote. I couldn't catch the rest of it.
Okay, so the only thing of importance that I said after that was that it is set shortly before the novel The Dreamer's Lament, which was released last month.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's where it was. All right. And this is a free download, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
By the way, randomly, since I had been waiting for an opening to mention it, apparently Jodie Whittaker has not yet acted Shakespeare professionally. Or if she has, Wikipedia is missing. So she
once again, Bill has to go look stuff up just to be anal retentive.
Just to be accurate.
Just remove the stick, Bill. God damn it. You've got it jammed way up there, man.
You're being positively dyslexic about what the hell you're supposed to be paying attention to.
Anyway,
then you wonder why you can't start an article.
Moving on to audio.
Oh.
So, coming out on audio CD is Dead Woman Laughing, the autobiography of Daphne Ashbrook, who played Grace Holloway in the 1996 Doctor Who movie. It is full of stories from her career on TV, stage, film. Daphne has appeared in many roles, including Doctor Who and Star Trek Deep Space Nine, as the character Melora in the episode Melora. So she reflects on her career. She discovers surprising patterns and hilarious absurdities that accompany being a modern-day professional actor. This is going to be available for £15.99 for a audiobook. Don't know what it's going to be available here in the US or if it will be, but if you're interested in those kind of backstories, this might be something you'd want to listen to. All right.
Yeah.
Off to Big Finish.
Okay, so now we've got Time in Office and The Silurian Candidate are both out now. Let's see here, sort of quick synopsis on these. For the Silurian Candidate, we've got the year is 2085, and planet Earth remains on the edge of nuclear precipice. At any moment, either of two vast rival power blocks to the west and the east might unleash a torrent of missiles, bringing about the terrible certainty of mutual assured destruction. Excuse me. But there's another way, or so Professor Ruth Drexler believes. Hence her secret mission deep in Eastern Bloc territory to uncover a hidden city never before glimpsed by human eyes, the Parliament of Silurians, the lizard people who ruled Earth before humankind. There she'll encounter a time-traveling doctor who knows the Silurians well, a doctor on a secret mission of his own.
Sounds like it was written like 30-some-odd years ago. And just adapted to audio now.
I mean, it's an obvious homage to the Manchurian Candidate, but
right.
Yeah. And it is starring Sylvester McCoy as the Seventh Doctor, so. And Bonnie Langford. And Sophie Aldred. So it'll have Mel and Ace in there.
Yeah, apparently in the most recent thing, this I'll mention. This is part. These both are part of the main range. So it's also kind of weird that they're being released at the same time, because usually when they're released to main ranges a month, they're about 2 weeks apart. But they just pushed them both out at once this time. Anyway, according to the recent main range, as apparently the Seventh Doctor and Ace have gone back and picked up Mel.
Oh, okay.
It was I listened to the first episode of the first story. She was back. It was a free download. Basically, she stopped traveling with Glitz, possibly due to some sort of trouble that Glitz got them into, and then she ended up at later in that story running into Ace and the Doctor and traveling with them since.
Okay. All right, so on to Time in Office, which will star Peter Davison as the Fifth Doctor, along with companions Louise Jameson as Leela and Janet Fielding as Tegan Travanka. Travanka? I don't know. I never knew how to pronounce it.
Vanka.
Vanka. Okay.
I heard it both ways, so yeah.
The Doctor's
well, I that's right out of Tegan's mouth, so
yeah.
Deal with it.
All right, the Doctor's adventures in time and space are over. The Time Lords have recalled him to Gallifrey, but what he faces on his home planet is worse than any trial. Following the disappearance of President Barusa, the High Council condemned him to the highest office, and he can't evade his responsibilities a nanosecond longer. So all hail the the Lord High President. All hail President Doctor. Rassilon save him. This time there's really no escape. So this is take place after the 5 Doctors, then?
So it would have
Yes.
to.
It would have to.
Of Barusa, yeah.
One thing that's interesting that people are pointing out online, and of course the actual story probably clears it up, but there is no point, if you follow at least a vanilla Doctor Who timeline, that the Doctor and Tegan are ever alone in the TARDIS.
That is true.
So either Turlough's missing or Nissa's missing.
All right, so
Or this is
there is a point in the Big Finish time where the Doctor dropped Nissa off to do some research somewhere.
Okay, so
right.
it might be due to that then. That's why I said vanilla timeline, because I wasn't quite
and
sure
that was an excuse for them for when they had Tegan and not Nissa, or when they had Janet Fielding and not Sarah Sutton.
All right, so the writer here may have something to say about that. Eddie Robinson says that he got the idea from Alan Barnes, who asked him if he'd like to do a story about the Doctor being forced to take the presidency post 5 Doctors, and it sounded so great. Eddie Robinson said yes. He immediately felt this would work best as a quite comedic one. His favorite version of Gallifrey is the one from The Deadly Assassin, the decadent, change-resistant version full of pompous oaths, and his favorite TV shows about politics are things like The Thick of It and the original House of Cards, which has lots of humor in it. So he went in that direction.
Now I'm picturing Lord President Malcolm Tucker.
Well, we know where Leela and Tegan are going to be in this. They're going to be, Tegan is horrified by Leela's savagery, and Leela is annoyed by Tegan's civility.
I don't know about that last one. I mean, Leela has been living with the Time Lords for, X amount of time.
At least a couple of years by this point, yeah.
And the Time Lords are going to be horrified by Tegan's attitude, if nothing else. I don't know if savagery would be the right word there.
Abrasiveness.
But, yeah.
Might be a better term
All
for
right,
Tegan.
so they describe it as Leela doesn't know how to choose her words carefully, and Tegan doesn't care. Tegan does feel a bit isolated at times because the Doctor's pleased to see Leela again, and she knows the situation on Gallifrey. So Leela becomes his right-hand woman, and Tegan is left kicking her heels and finding out just why the Doctor left Gallifrey in the first place. So those could be some
and I'm sure
clues.
choosing Leela as his right hand is going to really make him appreciated by the rest of these dusty old senators who are all jockeying for position.
Yeah, that's not gonna help much either. Yeah.
And his best friends on Gallifrey are the one he just deposed and the one he left in E-Space.
And the one in E-Space might not have come back out yet.
No, she wouldn't have come back out yet.
All right, now on to more Big Finish. The Thief Who Stole Time will be wrapping up Series 6 of the Fourth Doctor Adventures. So here we will be having the Thief of Time will star Tom Baker and Lala Ward. As a god has died, a crime has been committed, and an even greater threat lies beneath the surface. On the ocean world of Thunderel, Romana has been reunited with her old friend from Gallifrey, Sarsha, and the Doctor is investigating the history and religion of this strange world, but events have quickly spiraled out of control. Why is this planet of such interest to the Time Lords, and what lurks in the depths? The life of more than one world is at stake, but time is running out.
Thunderel. I don't know. I kind of like the name of that world.
That sounds familiar. Like, I'm getting some deja vu about Thunderel.
It does sound a bit like Thundera, but...
A little bit.
No. Yeah, it does sound like Thundera, but I wonder if they've used this world before in Big Finish.
Not that I'm aware of.
In Big Finish, maybe, but definitely not in regular
Thunderel.
Doctor Who. It does not come from any episode I'm familiar with. And I'm familiar with most of them.
I don't remember a race of people running around with hot air balloons, so...
Unless you count Pete's World.
Well, you don't run with a hot air balloon, you float.
Oh, actually, I'm looking at the cover now. Those are very clearly not Zeppelin, so it wouldn't.
Well, they all look like personal hot air balloons, but anyway.
Oh! It has been used. It has been used. So we were just talking about... Let me scroll up here. Sorry, So, Thief Who Stole Time. So this is definitely a different story. Let me see here. The Skin of the Sleek is where it is mentioned.
And that looks like it was earlier in the same series of Fourth Doctor Adventure.
On the planet Thunderel, you can walk on the ocean. The surface holds you when you move, but if you stand still, you sink. Lights shift in the fathoms, and great shapes move beneath your feet. Schools of giant electric eels known as sleeks.
Is that the immediately preceding episode?
So it's a return back to the same area.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. It says continuing from last month. So it's either a two-parter or two stories set in the same location.
Okay.
Yeah, and it says here that the adventure continues in Doctor Who, the Fourth Doctor Adventures, The Thief Who Stole Time.
So it's kind of a two-parter, so okay.
Yep. Okie doke.
All right. Because I remember Bill reading that, so...
All right, so that wraps up our news. I do have a little bit of something I want to talk to in our Geek Talk segment, and that was on Sunday. I did manage to catch the series premiere of Seth MacFarlane's new show, The Orville. If you haven't heard about it, it is basically Seth MacFarlane tries to do Star Trek. And based on what I saw, he has not entirely succeeded. Anybody else catch it? I mean, I know Aaron slept through most of it.
I slept through most of it.
I have seen.
I've heard mixed things about it.
Reviews.
Well, it really depends on how much of it you watched. Because my problem with it is the first 10 to 15 minutes of it is pretty crappy. There's not a scene that's not a scene joke. The very first scene, Ed, the main character, whose name I suddenly cannot remember the last part of, even though he's the captain, basically comes in from his job and walks in on his wife in bed with a blue alien, who then immediately spews goo all over everything. And I'm like, that was unnecessary. And it literally goes like this for like the first introductory. But once the Orville gets underway, and I mean the ship actually departs space stock and everything, it actually starts going kind of like a classic episode with only the occasional one-liner that is a throwback more to, Seth MacFarlane's style. And that made it a lot better. It's still off to a shaky start. It's by no means going to be a great show, and I am wondering where Fox is airing it, because they did an encore performance Tuesday night, and I'm not sure if that means that its regular time is going to be Sunday or Tuesday.
We'll have to wait and see what next week brings.
Well, yeah, the reason I'm mentioning this is the slot that it premiered in is the absolute worst possible slot to show any show. It looks like it's going to be Sundays. Yeah. I predict the Orville will not last the season.
Rotten Tomatoes currently has it at 22%.
Yeah, I know that.
I know that some people don't like Rotten Tomatoes, but yeah.
And a good chunk of it are people that watched the first 10 minutes and went, okay, this is crap, and reviewed it based on that. The big issue is the slot that they're putting it into is the Sunday night slot just after football and before Family Guy, The Simpsons, etc. It is the same slot that Firefly was in. It's the same slot that Sarah Connor Chronicles was in. It's the death roll slot.
Wikipedia seems to believe that was just a special time slot for the premiere, and that Thursday night or Thursdays doesn't actually say day or night, but that Thursdays will be the regular slot.
According to Wikipedia, episode 2 is scheduled for September 17th, which is a Sunday, but then it moves to Thursday.
Okay, yep.
So will they air it again on Thursday? We'll have to wait and see, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know yet. It could be that they're waiting for something to finish before it moves to its regular time slot.
Yeah, I feel like people are going to tune in on Thursday the 21st and be like, what the fuck is going on? You know, where's the first episode of this show? It's kind of like Firefly.
Yeah, it's kind of foxing, and I'm noticing that the production codes, the episodes are being shown out of order. I don't know how serial the show is, however, so that might not make a difference with this.
But it could, and it could cause another disaster, and Fox will just wash its hands of it as usual.
Seth MacFarlane is trying to go old school Star Trek with this, not like the new stuff that's all edgy and dramatic. They're trying to be more like Next Generation.
Whew. Some of these reviews on here.
A more lighthearted Next Generation. By the way, it's Ed Mercer is the name of the main character. And there are some things that are, absolutely. I mean, some of the jokes are absolutely Seth MacFarlane, and that's not always good.
No, I kind of called that from the beginning that he might be adding his twist to it, and
it's not.
Not everybody's gonna like it.
It's not him that wants it. He wants to do almost straight Star Trek, just slightly lighter-hearted.
And Fox wants him to ham it up more.
And Fox wants it to be live-action Family Guy in space. And so
of course Fox wanted to be terrible.
Yeah.
And Entertainment Weekly says, I share MacFarlane's yearning for the lost wonder of Star Trek, but I don't need to watch brand new sea-level Next Generation episodes, especially not when some creative force behind the scenes keeps tossing out unfunny, crude gags.
Yeah.
Fox.
There's a lot of, there's what Salon.com says. What I'm saying is, feel free to seek out new life in whatever manner you see fit. Boldly go where you've never gone before. Just go anywhere but here.
Now, here's the thing. Fox sent out the first 3 episodes as their review. So they sent those out to critics, and from what I've heard from these critics, the episodes get better as it progresses. So it could be it just could be that it takes a few episodes for them to find that mix.
It could be one of those slow burners that gets a while to get going.
Yeah, it just takes a while to find the proper mix.
So here's a question. Did they send out the first 3 orders in airing order or production order?
I think airing order.
So because 1, 3, and 4 production.
Because I'm pretty sure they mentioned the last episode is the one called About a Girl, or the 3rd episode they reviewed was About a Girl. which is going to be the third aired episode.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure they got Old Wounds, Command Performance, and About a Girl are the three that they're going to get, and or the three that they reviewed. And like I said, they said the third one was the best of them. So it's quite possible that there might be a backslide with the fourth episode, it being the second production number. And then from there, it'll start improving as they get into the later production codes.
Fox, you need to stop doing that.
All the frickin' studios need to learn that executive meddling is bad stuff. It's bad juju. It just does not work because somebody has a vision that will work great for people, but then the frickin' execs come down who don't know funny if it bit them and say, no, it needs to be more like this.
Well,
and
here's
they ruin it.
Well, I'm just reading what Newsday is saying is kind of the opposite, is that there's no one to rein in McFarlane or his worst impulses. As both
That's
series
probably
lead
their
and
assumption.
showrunner. Yeah.
Yeah, that might be their assumption. It's not what I've heard from the actual staff that actually were making this.
Mm-hmm.
Is that they want to do this, but Fox was coming down and saying make it more gags. So
what I heard also directly from Fox was that they wanted it to be more like Galaxy Quest, and that's not what Seth wanted.
No, it's not really what's Galaxy Quest. I mean, the first few minutes remind me a bit of A Million Ways to Die in the West, only not as funny. And by the way, that was a movie that you either loved or you hated. I don't know how many of you have seen A Million Ways to Die in the West.
Heard of it. I've heard mixed bag.
Yeah, it's a very polarizing movie. I like it. But those kind of jokes don't work everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't work if you're trying to play it straight. And McFarlane's trying to play it at least semi-straight.
Well, Fox just doesn't want to have it.
Right.
Well, a lot of the audiences here are giving it 4 and 5 stars, 4.5 stars. Don't listen to the critics.
So the audience review is going to probably be a lot higher than the critic review.
Well, yeah. Well, mind you, my critic review is that the first episode wasn't that good, but it got better as it progressed. Hold on, keep watching. This might get really good.
A lot of references to Star Trek The Next Generation, and a lot of preferences to Star Trek before sci-fi in general came to get dark and gritty. Like, Dark Matter and even Firefly got pretty gritty.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you take a look at New Trek, the 2008, 2009, whatever, the Chris Pine Star Trek, it's basically Star Trek made grittier and edgier and, everything
more shiny textures.
Yeah, everything for the modern audience. And the problem is that wasn't really what Star Trek was about. And that's kind of Seth MacFarlane's point, is you need to get back to what Star Trek was about. The crew providing hope in a way. And, he's not quite there with this, and it might just be that, by episode 7 or 8, he'll be there.
Yeah.
But we don't know yet.
No, I kind of liked what I saw.
Well, yeah, that's because you slept through the first 40 minutes and tuned in for the last 20.
Yeah.
And the last 20 was where it was decent. I'm just saying that you have to balance that with the first 20 minutes, which were kind of bad. Like where he walks through this amorphous blob with the voice of Norm Macdonald that just, hey, man, no problem. And it's just, part of it is the fact that some of the dialogue between the crew in the first 20 minutes just isn't right. It's not what you'd expect from. You'd expect this from him running into somebody on Family Guy, not what you expect from the crew of a futuristic starship. But as it went on, it got better. And the crew started acting a little better. Seth MacFarlane didn't, but that's kind of part of the point. And that, I think, is another thing that some of the critics said, is the fact that Seth MacFarlane, casting himself in the lead role, may have bit off more than he can chew as an actor. but we're gonna have to keep watching to see.
Yeah,
and
we'd have to wait and see on that.
Yeah, not everybody's Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah,
Some people are William Shatner.
Spock!
Yeah. Well, the problem is that he also tried to be writer, and don't let Shatner write, direct.
Oh, you're
and
saying
act.
you're saying Shatner wrote. I thought you were saying McFarlane wrote. I'm like,
no,
McFarlane. So it's a YouTube show.
Seth MacFarlane is a writer.
Mm-hmm.
I was referring to Star Trek V. Yeah.
Well, unless Shatner's writing Tech Wars.
Mind you, I think he had somebody that Ghost co-wrote with him on Tech Wars.
I have heard confirmation that the Star Trek novels he wrote were largely ghostwritten.
That's what I figured. William Shatner would pitch a general idea, and then somebody would ghostwrite it.
Yeah.
And I think that's partially what happened with the Tech War books too.
Which is what happened with the good Star Wars movie.
Yeah. Well, when you know that you're an ideas person, but you're not great at getting it on paper,
it's better to have someone write for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wish George Lucas would have taken that when he did the prequels.
Oh yeah.
Instead of letting it all go to his head.
Turn over to a Plinkett review. Stop wasting my time. George Lucas is looking at clay model.
But so this could go terrible, and this is airing the same month, by the way, that Star Trek Discovery is coming out, and that's going to be a burning dumpster fire.
It's a burning dumpster fire in either direction, and but the Discovery is going to be turning out terrible, I think.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Okay.
Discovery is going to be a burning dumpster fire coming out of the gate. I mean, it's so bad. It's so bad that Paramount is already working on its replacement show.
It's so bad that they're trying to shove it to their online-only streaming service first.
No, that was their plan first. It was supposed to flagship their streaming service. Now I think they want to cram it. Now they want to cram it into a dark corner and hope nobody
Enterprise
watches.
is always the flagship.
Yes, but this is the Enterprise. This is Discovery.
Exactly. That's why it cannot be the flagship.
But apparently, Nicholas Meyer is supposed to be making a new Star Trek series. If you don't know who he is, he was the guy that wrote and directed Star Trek 2 and Star Trek 6.
Yep. And half of Star Trek 4.
And half of Star Trek 4.
Wasn't he also originally supposed to be slated for Discovery, and then they switched things?
No, that was somebody else, and they jumped ship and joined the crew. They joined the production team on the Orville. Because, and that was Brandon Braga, I think. Just because they basically, the heads of Paramount for the Discovery basically sent down and went, no, we need to make it more flashier and more like modern Star Trek. And the guys that were behind this are just like, no.
No, that's the worst idea. Bye.
Yeah. And, I honestly don't care as long as Rick Berman doesn't get involved with any of this shit. Because Rick Berman was to Star Trek what John Nathan Turner was to Doctor Who. His response to, hey, we're losing ratings, was, hey, let's add more fan service.
Face palm.
Not, hey, let's improve the quality of writing.
I hate that continuity and random TNA are both have the same label. I feel like they should have different.
Well, watch like any any episode from Enterprise's third season. Like every other episode is the Enterprise discovers this in its war with the Cindy, and T'Pol gets naked.
I was complaining about that in season 1, if you remember.
Yeah, but it got worse in season 3.
Mm-hmm.
It went from being like every 5 to 6 episodes to every other episode.
By the way, you guys, did you know Discovery was supposed to be an anthology series?
That's what they're saying now.
Yeah, I'm thinking that might be them covering their ass.
That's another theory that people have been saying.
That's what Brian Fuller, the former executive producer, was trying to go for, apparently.
Yeah, but he was only the 3rd executive producer.
Mm-hmm.
So he's covering his. I think he's covering his ass. Discovery's been through more executive producers. It's just like take a number at the deli. Jesus.
Yeah.
You too can be the showrunner for Star Trek Discovery. Just take a number and wait long enough.
So that being said, are we ready to move on? Do we have anything else to mention quick?
Are we at about the hour mark, or
we're at about a 5 after the hour mark? Yeah.
We're about 5 past the hour mark. So
yeah,
we rambled a bit.
So keep your eyes on the Orville and just don't worry about Discovery. It'll be gone in time. All right. So 5-minute challenge. Who's up for it?
I believe Bill and Tim were the last two to do it, so it's up to me and you, Randy.
You want to take this one, Matt?
Sure, I can take this one.
All right, let me start up the stopwatch. I'm just not feeling up to it yet.
Okay. Well, yeah, you just had like the couple days from hell now.
It's
Again.
the lack of sleep right now.
Yeah,
right.
They stole your sleep.
Yes. Okay, you ready, Matt?
Ready.
In 3, 2, 1.
Alright, so we start off immediately on this episode with the Doctor landing on a strange planet. He doesn't know exactly where he's at, but he does know that he was being steered. He immediately blames the Time Lords and decides to sit outside the TARDIS and be petulant about it while playing with his yo-yo. Sarah keeps trying to poke and prod the Doctor to go investigate things, but he's just not having it right now because he's still angry with the Time Lords. She finds a decapitated head of a bug-like creature, which the Doctor comes over and comments on what it is, and that apparently this must have happened after whatever happened with the ships, having also spotted several crashed ships in the area. Something supposedly wants no ships landing anywhere near this area and keeps causing them to crash. Meanwhile, we find out where the head went, as we saw earlier before the TARDIS landing that a strange man with a hook hand decapitated the monster. And we see the same man come up to a scientist in his lab and hands him a head. He's saying that the creature was an air breather. Upon finding the creature, he laments that it's a bug-like creature and says it's useless, but he can still use it for experimentation. And apparently he's looking for a head to finish off a particular creature that he's trying to build. As to why he's building the creature, they're not explaining right away. As things continue to progress, the Doctor is noticed by a woman in flame-like clothing. There's lots of reds, oranges, and yellows in their clothing and their attire. She goes back to her group, and they decide that there must be a Time Lord, because there's no other way that a stranger could just suddenly pop up without them noticing a ship crashing. And they telekinetically continue to follow the Doctor as he heads up to this building where the scientist is at, and they manage to get inside. The scientist commenting on how lovely a head the Doctor has. With a little more telekinesis being involved with the ongoings, the Doctor finally sees the clay head that the scientist was working on in the earlier scene, and comments that it is Morbius, a defunct Time Lord who is supposed to be killed due to his crimes against Time Lord society. But as he's commenting on this, at the same time he's passing out due to drugs and the wine that they were just drinking with the scientist, and Sarah Jane feigns to do the same thing. The Doctor is dragged upstairs and strapped to a table, while Sarah, who was faking it, wakes up, immediately gets up and follows them and tries to find the Doctor to free him, only to find that he disappeared. She starts to sneak her own way out and manages to do so successfully, while also then following the Doctor and his hunchback, hook-handed friend to the Sisters of the Flame. I forget what their exact name is.
Karn.
Yeah, the Sisterhood of Karn.
The Sisterhood of Karn. The planet being Karn because that's where they come from, and they have this elixir called the Elixir of Life. Apparently the Time Lords have been using it to help cause regenerations, but they don't keep using the elixir unlike what the Sisterhood of Karn does, in order to keep their members completely immortal for all time. The Doctor is investigating around, but they decide that he's there to try and steal the formula while he's trying to sit there figuring out why the Time Lord sent him here. Obviously, it's part A and part B to the doctor because he thinks that there's something wrong with the elixir, and there's also obviously something very wrong with the scientist because he felt the mind of somebody else just before he passed out. He believes it must be Morbius and that he needs to go back to the scientist and figure out what's going on. The scientist tries to intervene with the doctor being murdered by the sisters, only giving Sarah Jane enough time to cut the doctor's hand bindings and allow the both of them to run away. On their escape, the leader of the sisters uses a ring which shoots a beam at them, blinding Sarah and forcing the doctor to take it slow with her as they get back to the scientist. They get back to him, and he was willing to stay with him at least for a short while he figures out what's up with Sarah. He sends the doctor back to the Sisterhood, saying that their elixir of life is the only thing that could cure her eyes, as they're highly damaged. But in fact, it is only a temporary blindness, and she'll recover in a few hours. The doctor goes back willingly and even turns himself in immediately to the guards that capture him, proving that he's not actually there for selfish reasons, that he's there to save a friend, even though they constantly threaten him with death. He then helps the sisters when they show him where the elixir is being made, and they almost decide to kill him until he sends down some firecrackers and then immediately clears up what is apparently an ash deposit that was causing the flame to die out, and also stop the elixir. So with the flame back, the elixir is back in full blast for being produced and keeping the Sisterhood alive, and they allow him to go back to the scientists to stop whatever it is he's planning, and most likely the resurrection of Morbius. Getting back to them, the scientist kills his hunchback aide because he notices that one of the arms on the temporary body for Morbius is one of his own that was removed for the hook hand. And the scientist gets Morbius working in a temporary body without the doctor's head because Morbius wanted to hurry in order to get out of there. And the doctor shows up just in time for the body to wake up and start attacking. Not all of its capabilities were hooked up to the brain, so it's running on base instinct. They managed to paralyze it, send it back, and the doctor tells the scientist to pull it apart. But instead, he decides to finish wiring up so Morbius can be in full control again. After he finally finishes this, the gases that's released by the doctor and Sarah Jane knock him out, send Morbius downstairs into the basement to stop it, but also have a duel of wits with the doctor, who decides to challenge him one-on-one. The doctor is temporarily stunned, but he completely destroys the brain case for Morbius, who then goes wild and starts running to the countryside and is chased down and pushed off a ledge by the Sisterhood. The leader of the Sisterhood sacrificed herself earlier, I believe, and as they come back, after they come back, she sacrifices herself because they use the elixir to help make sure that the doctor will fully come back. With that done, the Sisterhood decides that they're going to stop crashing ships as long as things seem to be safe enough with the incoming ships. And the doctor has to quickly leave as apparently they are being needed somewhere else. And that's about it.
All right.
Wow, that ran long.
Yeah, you did that in about 7 minutes.
Yeah, it's a 4-parter, but it's a really long-winded roundabout 4-parter.
Yeah, I thought it was a 6-parter until I was rewatching.
By the way, was it just me, or when Matt was describing Morbius the first few times, did it sound like he was saying Mobius?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I tried to say Morbius quick, and it does sound like Mobius a bit. It is a slip of the tongue. I am saying Morbius, but it doesn't slip off the tongue fast enough for me to speak.
It just kept making me raise eyebrows because I'm like, at what point is he a loop folding in on itself, or at what point is he a planet that Sonic the Hedgehog comes from? All right.
Was that a thing? I don't remember that being a thing.
I suddenly feel smarter.
I feel dumber. For not knowing that Sonic the Hedgehog comes from a different planet.
They keep adding things to the Sonic, and in the 90s he was, I'm pretty sure, from Earth.
No, he was from Mobius.
He was really?
He was not from human Earth, no.
No, in the 90s Sonic stories, he was pretty much everything all took place on the planet Mobius.
Oh.
And you never actually saw them interact with humans. it was only, I think,
Except for
Sonic
maybe
X.
Eggman.
Well, yeah, except
Yeah.
for Robotnik.
In
In the Sonic X is where they actually crossed a dimensional barrier and wound up on Earth. But they were
I also
still
think
originally
that
from Mobius.
there was a hints that Mobius is Earth, but in the future, like a Planet of the Apes type
I can
thing.
see that.
The distant
But it
future.
was still always called Mobius. Anyway, Matt, now you know. So now we can
And
get
knowing
back
is half the battle.
the other half being red and blue lasers. Okay. All right. And God, you feel old just for knowing that reference. Okay.
I'm just sad that my phone doesn't know how to spell Frankenstein. It's spelled it Frankenstein.
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein. And I'm Igor. Don't you mean Igor?
No, it's pronounced
Whatever.
Igor. Is that how I
Okay.
was told? Well, then I was wrong then. But
So, what you liked about the episode overall, and Tim, you were up first.
Oh
For
boy,
whatever,
I can
for
feel
whatever
something.
reason today, the dice decided to choose you all in reverse name order.
Yay!
Okay.
Are we reading Thomas first or last?
No, we'll read Thomas when it's Thomas's turn.
Oh, you're
Actually,
okay.
be
Oh,
after
you actually
guys.
gave him a turn? Okay.
Yep.
I really loved the character designs in this episode. Everything from the mad scientist and his assistant to the Sisterhood's dresses, and even the look of the monster robot creature, Morbius's final form. So to
Well,
speak.
You realize, Tim, that the mad scientist and his assistant were not originally part of the storyline. Originally, Morbius's ship was supposed to crash land on Karn, and he had a robot that was going around harvesting parts to try to build him a new body.
Oh, that's what that was about. I thought the mad scientist was still in there. It was just
No,
that
the robot
the
was.
assistant was
the-
robot.
those two characters were completely replaced by a robot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Originally.
And when the showrunner came out and basically said, "Yeah, we don't have the budget to realize that robot. That's not going to work."
Wow, it was actually cheaper to hire 2 extra actors than to build a robot costume.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
One that they thought would do what they needed it to do within the confines of the script.
I guess they were going for better production values than they would have had about a decade prior, because they probably could have afforded one of those robots made of cardboard and aluminum foil.
Mm-hmm.
The original, like the characters that did appear on screen, I loved. I love their look and their movements. That's my favorite thing.
The guy that played, what was it, Solon?
Solon?
Yeah. He is actually a Doctor Who alumni. He has been in many things before, including the Crotons. He was in the War Games.
Okay.
And he would return again in a later episode. I'm trying to remember which one now. But yeah, he was in a lot of productions.
He's just one of those actors that could fit into random roles throughout the franchise, essentially. There's been a couple of them.
Yeah, he would be he would return in Power of Krull. He also had a role in Daleks Invasion Earth 2150. And he has done audio work in the Big Finish plays Master and Return of the Crotons.
Go figure.
Also, his assistant was not an actor by trade.
Oh.
He was an opera singer.
Oh.
But he was a large person, and as a newcomer to television, he was cheaper to hire.
So, yeah, he was cheaper than a costume. Because all they had to do was put him in makeup and a stuffy shirt and a fake back.
And they could basically pay him base. Actors Guild base.
And he didn't really need to act that much anyways. He just needed to act basic and be a brutish guy.
Basically, it's like, you remember what Igor sounded like? Yeah, basically do that.
Do your own version of Igor. We're going to give you a hunchback and everything. Oh, cool. Okay.
He does come off a bit like Mongo from Blazing Saddles.
A bit, yeah.
All right, so next is Thomas, but as we mentioned, Thomas is not going to be here.
He did leave thoughts.
But yes, he did. What he liked was the old age makeup used on and the general acting by the actress playing Marin. She was actually only in her 30s at best at the time it was made, and you'd never be able to tell from her voice and her makeup. Yeah, she did have that old crone voice.
Yeah, she actually acted really well in that. I'm going to try and find a picture of her. Here. Her. The one in the foreground here. She's only 30 years old, folks.
In her 30s, so somewhere between 30 and 40.
Still. She's not really that old.
Yep. And, you think of some of the old age stuff they've done for actors within the last 10 years, and you look at that and go, okay, that's crap.
Yeah.
No.
That's down-to-earth craft. That's good handiwork, is what that is.
Yes. All right, so Matt, you're up. What did you like about the episode overall?
Overall thing I liked about the episode. Usually I go for the visual stuff. I'm going to go for story stuff. There wasn't a lot of fluff. Despite how long this was, there's a bit back and forth, but there was no time for fluff.
Yeah, there really wasn't. This filled out 4 episodes real nicely.
Mm-hmm. I can't say there was actually a dull moment.
They could have added fluff and filler if they had put it up to 6 episodes. But no, they didn't do that. They ran it at as 4. And it doesn't really feel overpaced.
Doesn't feel overpaced, but it doesn't feel like they're just dawdling about either.
Yeah. It was actually well written, and you know who wrote this, don't you?
The original one was, I'm trying to think of his name now.
The original writer for the Brain of Morbius was Terrence Dicks.
Yeah, Terrence.
Basically one of the biggest Doctor Who writers of all time.
And the other half was written by another one of the biggest Doctor Who writers of
Robert
all time,
Holmes.
Robert Holmes, yeah.
Who was the script editor at the time.
Right.
And the only reason he had to put his pen to it was the whole robot thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that, by the way...
that was also because Dix was on
vacation and left no contact information.
Because he wanted to be left alone on vacation.
Correct. He did not want to be bothered. So Holmes did that without Dix's permission. Dix came back and he was really pissed. And Reddit's like, well, okay, you can do this, but I don't want my name on it anymore. And it's like, well, then what should I put for who it was written by? I don't know. Just use some kind of bland name. And sure enough, when it came out, it wound up being Robin Bland. And
apparently Dix had a good chuckle when he saw that name.
Yeah, he seems to be amused by it. And there's no hard feelings, apparently, because Dix went and did the Target novelization.
Mm-hmm.
So
apparently he was really frustrated when he first found out about what all happened. But then when they explained it to him, he's kind of like, oh, I kind of see, but I still don't want my name on it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to change it that much.
And, that was just kind of like the equivalent of having a director be Alan Smithee.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So, let's see.
Dix did continue to write on-screen episodes after as well. So.
Yep. So there was no permanent butthurt there.
No.
All right. Aaron, how about you? What did you like about the episode overall?
I liked the addition of the Sisterhood of Karn to the mythos. I think it really kind of helped. It still added an air of mystery because we don't know a lot about them, but we do know that they have an animosity towards the Time Lords and a suspicion. Like they're constantly suspicious of people of the Time Lords, especially interfering and meddling and basically trying to throw the Sisterhood under the bus.
Except they don't. If you really look at it, boil it down, the Sisterhood of Karn are all addicts.
Yeah.
They're addicted to this elixir that they're using to stay immortality.
Well,
and their whole thing about it is, they're trying to take our stash, man!
Uh-huh.
And so they immediately start pointing fingers if they sense a Time Lord.
Yeah, it's the fact that they've had this alliance with the Time Lords for years. The Time Lords would occasionally come and ask for a little bit of their elixir when a Time Lord was having problems regenerating. We actually do get to see this finally realized in Night of the Doctor, the web episode prior to Day of the Doctor, when the Doctor needs to use it to regenerate into the War Doctor. But before that, that's the kind of thing that the Time Lords needed the elixir for. But they use it like all the time to stay the same age and not, and live forever. And they're all addicted to it now because they use it so much. So they have the problem that the flame is starting to die. The elixir is slowing down to a trickle, and they only have a little bit left. And they're just like, no, this is ours. You can't have it. You're trying to take it.
Take the process.
Only they're doing it. Only they're doing it still within the confines of the fact that they are a religious, they've created this whole religion around the sacred flame. So you can tell that when they capture the Doctor and interrogate him, they're just like, confess that you're trying to take our elixir for the Time Lords, and not really giving him any other opportunity. They're basically addicts masking as faith. Whew.
Or they're overly faithful people just looking for a scapegoat. Either way.
So I have a question about why they were all female.
It's a sisterhood.
It's a sisterhood. They just decided to be all female.
Yeah. They don't really explain it. And no canonical source explains it.
They just became a sisterhood, and they stayed a sisterhood because they're immortal. Why not?
They don't explain it in the confines of the episode. They've never explained it in New Who. Non-canonically, the sisterhood is supposed to be a split. They were originally of Gallifreyan origin, but they split away from Time Lord society.
That is one of the theories I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah, that stems from some of the novels somewhere, but there's no.
It would also explain why this member of the Sisterhood could visit Gallifrey and not just immediately get kicked off the planet.
Well, they're allies.
Technically, they're allies, that too, but call them A, call them B.
But that whole thing about the Sisterhood being split from Gallifrey was a Mark Platt invention around the same time that he said that something that happened, that the Sisterhood had cursed the Time Lords to be sterile, and that's where the whole genetic loom bullshit started up, which we've since confirmed as being not happening.
At least nothing official has happened about that, as far as we are aware, and they're not going with
we've
it.
confirmed that it's not happening because you're supposed to come out of the genetic loom fully aged, and we've seen young Time Lords.
There was that short set during the Time War of somebody coming out fully aged, or seeming to come out fully aged, but
that was more like somebody was going under cybernetic enhancements to become a soldier.
That whole thing.
That was more somebody coming out of a machine being cybernetically enhanced for being a soldier, I think. And I don't think that's actually
either way,
being born.
we've seen Time Lord children now.
We've seen tons of Time Lord children at this point.
Yes. So we know that's a non-issue.
Whether it's the Master or kids running away from Daleks with their parents, it's canonical that they actually have children.
I actually don't think that they were coming out of a loom in that, Bill. I think they were basically brainwashed and indoctrinated as a soldier.
That's a possibility too, maybe.
Cleared. Yeah. Anyway, Bill, what did you like about the episode overall?
So, it's basically, generally, just I liked the whole everything to do with the history of the Time Lords and Karn. Usually, when they go into that, it's really interesting, and this one is not a bunch of people in silly robes and hats standing around, arguing with the Doctor. It's actually things happening too. So it just really cool to see, like, their talk about how Karn and Gallifrey interacted in the past and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, I actually prefer the Gallifrey episodes, but
I mean,
That's me.
I'm just there's more new things to it than there are to something like Invasion of Time
Yeah,
on the Gallifrey side.
We'll see how you feel when we finally show you Deadly Assassin. That's kind of the quintessential Time Lord episode.
But that's also the first one, isn't it?
Well, technically no, because the first one would be the Three Doctors.
Well,
the first one would be the War Games. Second
I mean,
one
War Games, then the Three Doctors, and then there's even little visits in between too.
The first one of that version of Gallifrey is a Deadly Assassin. Everything else is kind of a mediocre copy of Deadly.
Yeah, we'll see. Like I said, we're going to be doing a Gallifrey episode next, but not Deadly Assassin. So we'll see what you think about it when we've seen it all.
That's actually the one I haven't. So yeah.
All right. So as for me, I really like a lot of the set designs. Not so much the Sisterhood's cave because it was, generic cave, but Morbius's castle and where the crashed ships were, kind of thing. All of that I really kind of liked. I felt that the Morbius's castle in particular had that proper level of just horror creep, and that's really what they were aiming for, was turning this into a horror production. Or not Morbius's castle, Solon's castle.
Solon's, yeah.
But yeah, it was just that whole level of just making it into a horror movie. And they accomplished that with a pretty good feel, trying to recreate the cross between Frankenstein and the Isle of Dr. Moreau.
Mm-hmm.
And they managed to do that pretty well. All right, so what you didn't like about the episode, and we'll start with Tim.
Okay, this was kind of a personal thing for me, not really a technical thing, but the way the sisters just zoomed in on the doctor and said, "You're here to steal the elixir. The Time Lords have sent you to steal the elixir." Like that kind of negativity just reminded me of something that has frustrated me in my real life. I hate it when someone has already made up their mind about something and trying to explain yourself is useless, because anything you say will just be inferred in a way that it'll reinforce what someone else has already thought.
Half of all fictional conflicts would be defused in the first conversation if that wasn't a trope, though.
Plus, it was their stash, man. They only had so much of their stash left, and now suddenly a Time Lord's showing up. They're the only ones that know about our stash. They can't have our stash.
Fair enough, but it is just a personal thing for me. I understand that without this, the storyline would sort of fall apart. So
it would resolve itself way too quickly.
Mm-hmm. Would have been two-parter.
So I understand it. Well,
or a three-parter.
I'd say this was my least favorite aspect of the thing,
Okay. So we'll move on to Thomas. And what he didn't like is that the titular Brain of Morbius looks far too big to fit into anything other than the brain case. Morbius ends up having to use, if not mentioned... Oh, well, yeah, he also goes on about a second thing, but we'll not talk about that one. So his big issue is the Morbius brain.
Brain in the pan.
Now, if I remember a few things from my biology class, when you put an organ into fluid like that, it tends to swell up a bit. If I recall. Because it gets fluid,
yeah.
It gets fluid logged and just,
But I can see his point in the sense that the fluid wouldn't just immediately drain if he tried to stick it in the doctor's skull.
Yeah, well,
you get kind of like a Mojo Jojo type of thing.
That just leads me to a bad mental image.
I am Mojo Jojo. I require the body of the doctor.
Mojo Jojo, Renegade Time Lord.
You would think, though, that Solon had a way of actually, adjusting this somehow. Dehydrating the brain. Although I do love the fact that he's bitching about it in one of the scenes, and he's bitching about it and refers to it as feeling like a sponge under the sea. And do I need to tell you where my brain went?
Under the sea.
No, wrong. Who lives in a pineapple
Oh,
under the
that
sea?
too.
Yeah. That would have been my thought for opening bump, was to basically have that and cut to a scene.
Mine was Swamp Thing, and I went with Flynn, who actually contacted me before he decided he was too burned out for tonight, and he came up with the drop the firecracker explosion.
Mm.
And I'm the one that went, I'll meme it.
Mm. All right, so moving on to Matt. What about you? What didn't you like about the episode?
Really quick on Flint's point, by the way, I think he's thinking it's way bigger because they keep closing in on it originally.
Thomas.
Yeah,
Or Thomas, sorry. I think Thomas was thinking the brain was bigger than it was because they kept zooming in on it so much originally, because it was a big glowy brain in a pan.
And then they dropped it.
Then they dropped it, and then it looked normal size by the time they dropped it to me. So,
except for one side was dented in.
The one side was, both sides were kind of flat, to be honest, when I saw him pick it up. But
Dane Bramage,
props.
man.
I think it's supposed to be Abby Normal.
All right, so what didn't you like?
Overall thing I didn't like, as much as I liked most of their design, the Sisterhood's like headdress, I'm like, what? There's the weird kind of almost, there's the weird the layers upon layers hat on top of their heads, and then they got the weird things that are sticking out of their ears, and I don't know, man. It doesn't quite work for me. The rest of it seems fine, though.
That's just more evidence for them being Gallifreyan.
I guess the silly hats,
robes.
yeah.
Gallifrey actually owns the Ministry of Silly Hats. I don't know if you know this.
Unfortunately, I'm looking at this. I'm at the Sisterhood of Karn's page on TARDIS, and all I'm getting is pictures of Ohila. They're not showing the headdress you're talking about.
I got one decent one here that shows two of them, the leader and one of the other background girls. And it's just, I don't know. There's something about the headdress that just makes me go, I can barely take you seriously if I pay too much attention to it.
All right. Aaron, how about you? What didn't you like about the episode?
Aaron is muted.
Aaron, turn your mic on.
You need to unmute the program.
Yeah, it's on the program.
How is my mic muted?
Oh no, you muted yourself, assumably.
I don't remember doing it, but whatever. I didn't like how cheap it looked.
There were some parts like the caves where it looked cheap.
There was a part where they were holding flame. I don't know. They looked like fans shaped out of like plastic flames or like.
Oh, they're flame
flames.
daggers. Yeah.
They were supposed to be the flame quote unquote daggers, except you could see where
the stick goes
they were
in them.
way too blunt to be daggers. I mean, it looked like they had literally just been cut out of sheets of like plastic or whatever.
That of like industrial plastic, the stuff that you'd use for set design.
My point is that they weren't honed, they weren't sharpened looking or anything like that.
They didn't even remotely look threatening.
They weren't actual blades. They were basically, and they were held in with like what looked like well-shaped sticks. They looked like, I don't know. They looked like toys, basically.
Yes, they looked like toy props. They didn't look like something.
I'm kind of picturing this complaint as like if Leela showed up and she'd be like, "Look at your daggers. They're not even sharp. How would you stab me with this?"
It's not a mistake they would make in modern Who. That's for certain.
I mean, another thing is.
Oh, here we go. I found a picture.
Yeah,
actually, you know what? No, you know what they look like they're made of? They look like they're made out of foam.
Yeah.
That was either foam or it was that industrial plastic that they used to make sets out of, because they looked too solid to be foam. If you watched when they moved, they stayed perfectly rigid, and that's not usually what foam props do.
Yeah, another prop was Kondo's hand, his metal hand, which was this gigantic ass hook that didn't. It looked really kind of plastic and fake.
It looked chromy enough that I gave it a pass.
It looked better than the freaking daggers.
It looked better than the daggers, yeah.
But the daggers, I'm trying to think of any other props. Yeah, I don't know. There was just
Morbius' brain.
Yeah, Morbius's brain looked like a cheap plastic thing.
That looked like it was made out of foam.
Yeah. When it was out of the container, yeah, it looked like this cheap plastical black thing. It's just like,
There was a lot of. I mean, this could have been a better. I understand why the original writer was so pissed off, because just a little bit of extra money could have made these look a lot better.
But if you look at it, they were cutting costs as it was, so they didn't have the money.
Yeah. Like, even taking, like, a few daggers from, like, a Macbeth set. Oh, sorry, I mean the Scottish play set.
Yeah, thank you.
See, he wasn't even here for that, but he knows exactly what's going on.
I still say that we can say it because we aren't performing in it.
The Ninth Doctor's performing in it. No, not the Ninth Doctor, the 10th?
The Ninth.
The Ninth. Never mind, yeah.
Yeah,
Eccleston is performing in it, Tim.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I just know the superstition.
And it's the Royal Shakespeare Theatre version too, so that was a big thing. Mm-hmm. Anyway, yeah, a lot of it looked like it was really freaking cheap, and I think part of it was that they either blew the budget on some other things this season, or for whatever reason this particular season the budget just wasn't there.
Yeah.
I know. I know what it was. I know what it was. They were saving money because they had to freaking rebuild the TARDIS interior set.
That's right. You mentioned that.
Yes. The reason that you see in this particular episode the TARDIS land and they get out and you never see anything in the console room was between last season and this season. Yes, the console room got water damaged. So they had to, they're saving money to actually remake the set. And they do wind up coming up with an interim set that started in Mask of Mandragora and would continue being used up until The Invisible Enemy.
I was going to say, they come up with a temporary one with the wood paneling, don't they?
Yes, with the wood paneling and the dark brown look, yeah.
Yep.
And the tiny little console in the middle that really doesn't have any buttons or anything.
That, and I feel like other things this season, like Terror of the Zygons, Pyramids of Mars, they didn't exactly skimp on, a lot of
stuff either. They had a lot of production.
So they were probably pulling shoestrings just to get all the effects in all of these episodes.
Yeah, I mean,
you can't go too cheap on a TARDIS set, otherwise people are just going to call you on it.
And this was near the end of the production, so
so this is where they were particularly pulling strings.
I just like to comment that I actually really liked that interim TARDIS set.
I remember it fondly, but I don't remember a lot of details in it, though.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure, considering how quickly they replaced it, that it was supposed to be a temporary set. I'm going to have to read up on that later. Because that'll come into play when we do stuff in that era. Anyway, Bill, how about you? What didn't you like about the episode? We're going to keep this up. We're going to run over because we're going to be talking so much about what we didn't like.
So I'm going to go with Kondo just because he was so inconsistent that I can't imagine that he and Solon were able to work together as long as they were supposedly had without killing each other already.
Would you say that was writing or acting?
I would say writing, because the characters did, what their dialogue said. So but I just feel like they were unstable enough partnership that one of them would have killed the other years ago.
So that was totally on the shoulder of Robert.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how quickly he had to do the rewrites.
Probably within a week or a month. Something short, I'm sure.
All right. Yeah, and I mean, because he kept waffling back and forth. The fact that he had him hostage by having his arm, yeah. All right.
He tried to kill him for the arm at least twice.
So what I didn't like in here was some of the sound effects were rather hinky. In particular, there's a scene where Kondo jumps on the alien, and it makes like this high-pitched sound, which did not sound actually appropriate to what just happened. I'm like, seriously?
I think I know the scene you're talking about.
And there was a couple other parts where the sound effect just didn't match what they were doing. So I'm thinking the radiophonic workshop just was like short-staffed or something this season.
Yeah, I can't remember that particular sound. I'm trying to remember it, and I'm like,
it was like
I don't remember it being bad. I'm just
It was like one of the first scenes in episode 1.
I know. It's like I saw it today.
I don't think that's what I'm thinking, but there was at least one scene where I remember something happened, and I was sitting there like, wait, am I watching a comedy dub? Because like the sound effect played, and it just was not like remotely serious.
Yeah, he jumps the alien, and it lets out like squeaker fart sound effect. I'm like, seriously? No. Okay, so favorite scenes, Tim.
I love the scene where Sarah, in her brilliant, totally convincing disguise, sneaks in and undoes the doctor's handcuffs so he can escape the being burned alive.
And yeah, the fact that none of the Sisterhood notices that her little torch isn't even lit.
Her torch isn't lit. She's literally only in a pink robe. Oh, here's a matter of fact a close-up of her cutting the doctor free.
And she goes, it's like the area is so confined that you can't help but she's like 2 inches away from the head, the chief priestess,
who's looking right at her.
Well, looking right past her at the doctor at the moment, but yeah.
Yeah, but I love that scene for like all the wrong reasons, but I still love the scene.
All right. So next up was Thomas. Thomas's favorite scene is the one where Sarah Jane and the doctor are locked in the lab. Sarah points out to the doctor could just use a sonic screwdriver to free them, only for the doctor pointed out that he left it in the TARDIS. Quick way to get around the Sonic fixes everything problem. Oop, accidentally left it in the TARDIS.
The doctor left the Sonic in the TARDIS a lot during the Fourth Doctor era.
Yeah, that was because the people were starting to realize it was becoming a crutch, which is why they destroyed it in the Fifth Doctor era. And fans went boo. All right, Matt, how about you? Your favorite scene?
Favorite scene. Actually, I'm gonna go where Sarah Jane got to stretch her legs in acting, and she actually had to act blind for a good segment of the middle of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
And she does like this manically good job. Like she's literally doing the spacey out eyes, arms outstretched. She even stumbles over stairs a couple of times, like
Stairs,
purposely.
rocks.
And there's even one where she almost does fall over, and she self-corrects really quick.
If we watch the BTS, she'll probably talk about bruised shin.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. She probably did hurt herself a couple times stumbling over those stairs if they had to do multiple takes.
Yeah. Well, it's just more fact that Elizabeth Sladen is a wonderful actress, or was. God
yeah,
damn
she
it.
was. She totally played that really well.
All right, Aaron,
She's mastered
your
that
favorite
in like no
scene.
time.
All right, so Matt was just talking about Sarah being blind.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was
Especially
the
when
one that I was going to go for. But
Ah,
I stole Aaron's this time. Anything else, Aaron?
hang on. Scanning my stuff. Anyway, so I'm gonna go with the whole chop suey Galactic Emperor.
it was a great line. Just.
Or potpourri.
Yeah.
I like chop suey better.
Mm-hmm.
That also gave me an idea for another opening, but I decided against it.
As the doctor employs the Sao Tome primary technique, make him angry, make him stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta love that. All right, Bill, how about you? What was your favorite scene?
All right, mine was, it will be my crowning achievement. You idiot. Sorry, I couldn't resist the pun. It's just specifically seeing a villain on a Doctor Who episode not only make a pun, but specifically reference the fact that they're making a pun. I don't think I've ever seen a villain use the word pun in a relatively serious show before, and I loved it.
All right. Mine is where the Doctor fixes the sacred flame with an M80.
Which was the joke of the video.
Yeah, just I love that particular scene. The whole thing where they're just like, oh, he pushed it, he extinguished the flame and everything, and they're ready to frickin' burn him again, and just suddenly, poof! Suddenly there's fire. Let there be fire.
So, if he had used Nitro 9, it might have gone off fast enough that
if he'd used Nitro 9, it probably would have blown up the planet.
Yeah.
Then the opening would have been true.
See, instead of using the clip you used, man, I would have taken that scene from Hitchhikers where the planet explodes. Yeah. All right.
Well, the thing is, that's an implode, not an explode.
Not the one from the movie.
Oh, the TV series? I can't remember how they did in the TV series.
Anyway, least favorite scene. Tim.
I didn't like where I think Torbo and Morvo, the Hunchback and the Doctor was like, the Hunchback is like,
Kondo.
You were trying to kill me, and the Doctor is like, that was a joke. And I was thinking, really? That's the explanation the excuse you give? A joke? You could have said that was subterfuge, or that I was being clever. Like you were never in harm. I was just trying to get the Doctor away from the sisters. But a joke is like, how is that funny? How is that supposed to be? I know it's not really supposed to be funny, but in the context, how is this supposed to... Where is the humor in that?
Well, I mean, there are entire YouTube prank accounts dedicated to that sort of joke. So
Most of them are dead now, by the way.
But you got to admit, it didn't go over too well with Kondo, because he still is ready to kill him until he promises to give him his hand back.
Well, that's right. He was like, I'm not a joke. I'll kill you now.
Yeah.
I'll give you your arm back. Oh, you'll get my arm back? Okay, I'll get lab ready.
Yeah. Kondo needed like some bipolar disorder pills, I'm pretty certain.
That I think he also needs something for that perplexion.
All right. So, Thomas's worst scene was the one where Morbius in his new body kills one of the sisters. She just waits there and does nothing until she gets grabbed. If she was at least shaking in fear, he could understand her not moving at all, but the angle prevents us from seeing whether she is or not. So logically, she should have made a run for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that point that he was just trying to get the episode done. I think. That, and I really didn't like the whole Morbius robot on a rampage thing in general. That was just kind of dumb. Matt, how about you?
Especially considering the brain that was supposed to be inside.
Yeah, that was one of the few pieces where they could have actually cut things. Actually, scene I didn't like that much was when Hook Hand started grabbing Sarah Jane by the hair. It was I understand it from a villain point of view, but that was just being needlessly rough of a woman who he knows is literally blind and can't really fight him.
Yeah, but you get the feeling that Kondo hasn't had much experience with females.
A bit.
Just in general. Or anybody, really, for that matter.
Also, again, the one of the good parts about that scene, though, is Sarah Jane's acting.
Sold it.
She totally sold it, and she continued to act as blind as she could because she didn't actually look at him very much.
I think there was some who directed this?
Yeah, who's the director on this? Because the director did some amazing things with these actors.
Except for
Christopher Barry.
Except for that scene that was basically a directorial issue that Thomas about.
Yeah.
Yeah, except for one or two minor scenes. The majority of it, though.
Christopher Barry did a lot of Doctor Who.
Mm.
The Daleks
active
he did
from 63 to 79, and then he also did one of the spin-off.
So he did the original Dalek story?
Yep.
Ooh.
He did episodes
4
1,
of the
2,
7
4, and 5. Yeah.
So half of
He did the Rescue, the Romans, the Savages, the Power of the Daleks, the Daemons, the Mutants, and they actually referenced the mutants in this.
Yeah.
And the fact that the first thing that they got was a mutt is actually a reference to the mutants.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of a cool shout out. But yeah, I thought Barry did some really good job with this.
Yeah, he apparently he's had some really strong episodes to begin with. So yeah, he totally knew how to direct these people.
Aaron, how about you? Your worst scene?
I think it was the one where stupid phone. The one where the doctor jumps up and is obviously not tied very well. Basically he's tied around the shoulders, but very, very loosely as he jumps up to the sacrificial altar.
Yeah.
And then it's like obvious that he's holding his hands behind his back, but they aren't tied. And like suddenly a sister comes up from behind him and tries to discreetly start tying his hands behind his back, and it's just like, okay.
I think part of it was because he had to do that stunt. They wanted him to have his hands free, but yeah, they still that could have been a little that could have been cut a little better.
Yeah, and those ropes around his shoulders could have fallen off at almost any moment every time they came back to him.
It could have been, and they could have tied his hands behind his back, but just set the sacrificial altar a little bit lower to the ground.
Yeah, well, you got to remember this is still the age of one and done. They didn't, unless you fucked up seriously. Like
they didn't want to cut it.
Made a swear. They didn't want to go back and retake shit.
Yeah, it was a lot better than the 60s.
It was better than the 60s, but
later
the tape still cost money. And that was mostly their issue, is they didn't want to retake stuff because it would cost too much. So that's why there's not a lot of outtakes from Classic Who, by the way. So Bill, how about you?
Okay, so my least favorite scene, I'm not sure if they said the female brain is too small or the female 'S brain is too small, but either way, in the context, it kind of comes out to the same thing. When they were basically saying, and they could have fixed that scene just by saying, Sarah Jane as a human has too small of a brain cavity for Morbius.
I thought that's what they were saying,
the female route. But then this isn't like, even if they were, and if they had said the word human, I would have been fine. But implying that it has anything to do with the fact that it's a female brain, even if that wasn't the intended point, it rubs the wrong way.
It didn't really rub me the wrong way.
Yeah, I think you're reaching a little.
Other than knowing the fact that the Doctor was a Time Lord, they never really made any effort to find out what species Sarah Jane was.
They just kind of figured that the Doctor had a bigger head, and so therefore he had a better place for a brain.
Yeah, they just, I mean, and
they just looked at her and went, hers is too small, just leave her here.
Yeah, it was basically, in their heads, it was the Doctor,
and
in parentheses, Time Lord, and the female.
If they had said something like the female is from a savage race, that would have solved it enough for me. But as it is, the line comes across as being, because she's a female, her brain is too small. Regardless of whether that was intentional or not, it still comes off that way.
It never came off that way to me. So
it never came off that way to me either. So, I think it's just the way you're interpreting it.
All right, so I'm trying to remember my least favorite scene. I had it, and now I'm losing it.
I will say, Bill, maybe the way you're interpreting it, but I'm sure there are other people that would possibly see it that way too. So it is to be nitpicked. Choose words wisely. Anyway, Randy, got one?
Nah, I'm just gonna pass. I'm pretty sure
can't think of a bad scene. We've nailed most of them.
Yeah. All right. So, final thoughts. And we are already at the 2-hour mark, so let's
hurry this along. Yeah.
Final thoughts. I thought this was a good story. There were some technical writing things that made me question it, and some things also that I didn't personally like. But the characters were memorable, and the performances by Sarah Jane and the Doctor were top notch.
All right. Thomas thought the overarching theme of immortality being cast in a negative light is an interesting one and a relevant one to Doctor Who, as evident by this not being the only time it is the subject of a Doctor Who story. But he feels the serial could have used another draft or two. That said, it's still an enjoyable serial to watch, good but not great. All right. Matt.
There are some minor questions to be had about some of the scripting. The direction, though, was top-notch. The actors did really good jobs with what they were given, and they didn't waste any time trying to at least hammer their way through the plot, and they didn't fluff it too much.
All right. Aaron?
I enjoyed this as it was kind of a nice little shout out, a little Doctor Who shout out to Frankenstein, as well as building up some of the lore surrounding the Time Lords and other types of people similar to the Time Lords from Gallifrey. I'm assuming that's still canon.
Unofficially possible.
Anyway, but yeah. But yeah, it kind of builds up the serial. Even though it does kind of look cheap in some areas, the sets and the costuming are a lot of fun, and the directing is really well done.
All right. Bill?
Okay. Other than some fairly minor issues, mainly related to the Morbius monster and some of the stuff added in the rewrites, it's generally a very good story. Definitely, enjoyable information about the Time Lords and their past. Altogether, I do think it's very interesting that this, I think, is one of the more popular stories. Yeah, it's the one that Terrence Dix took his off of.
It's one of the more popular seasons. Morbius itself is a little hit or miss. Popularity-wise.
Right. But in general, I'd say this is a pretty good story.
All right. So this was probably a very well-written story that unfortunately had to be very hastily rewritten by Robert Holmes, and that shows the fact that he had to do it hastily. Thus, there's a little bit of plot holes and some character inaccuracies that do crop up in there. All in all, it's very well acted and very well directed. But the special effects and set design, or the special effects and props, do show the effects of budget cutting in this particular era, and that does tend to draw you out of the story a few times. All in all, making this above average, but probably not that into the all-time good or greats. But we'll see. Because, Tim, you're up first for your numeric rating.
My numeric rating for this episode is 4.5.
Ooh, 4.5. All right. Thomas gave this a 3.5. Again, feeling that it's, mediocre-ish. And that takes us up to Matt.
I'm going to give it a 4.
4.0. Aaron?
I'm going to give it a 4 as well.
Ditto. 4 from
4.0.
All for the middle ground.
And I'm going to give it a 3.5. Just because of the writing issue and the cheap props. I could have given it a 4 if it wasn't for the cheap props.
Even when I restrain myself, I still come out on top.
Yep. And by the way, that does average us out to a 4.0.
Oh, it's still a 4.0? Okay.
I think so. I need to double check.
I would have thought it would been a 3.9, but...
Yeah, I'm actually double checking. Thomas's wasn't actually getting factored in. I need to check that and see if it wasn't, and that does average us out to a 3.9.
Nailed it.
Master Sheet is correct, giving it a 3.917, which puts us Data sort. C, column D, reverse order. At a 3.9, it puts us still fairly high at number 101 out of 214. So above the halfway mark, but not far above the halfway mark.
Not by far, no.
It adds, with 3.9, it is on par with Knock Knock, Warrior's Gate, Revenge of the Slovene, Into the Dalek, Technophobia, Blink, Monster of Peladon, The Next Doctor, The Chase, Gardens of the Dead, Jago and Lightfoot Revival, Acts 1 and 2. It is better than Boomtown, Ghostlight, Enemy of the World, and not as good as Vengeance on Varos, Attack of the Cybermen, and The Runaway Bride. So there we are, 101 out of 214. That is all we have to say about the Brain of Morbius.
Just shy of good.
So keeping this short and simple, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and Twitch if you haven't, or to come, check us out on Facebook and Twitter for news and updates.
All right. So next week, following Tom Baker's defeat of Morbius, we skip forward a few years and one Doctor to the Peter Davison era, and the Doctor's second encounter with the insane Time Lord Omega in Arc of Infinity, written by Johnny Byrne and starring Peter Davison as the Doctor, Sarah Sutton as Nyssa, Janet Fielding as Tegan Jovanka, and featuring Ian Collier as Omega. See you next week.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.